then I want everybody to turn back to the cameras and wave to everyone that's online. Thank you for being here today. Let's go with that. All right. So when Jane knew she was going out on sabbatical, she reached out to a bunch of us and said, "Can we get the plan all put together of who's going to talk when and what the topic is?" And you may not know, we have a theme. And then I got the assignment, Tam, can I encourage you, or since we're talking about Passover, nudge you to do the Passover element of my sabbatical time. Now, I get it. I'm an ordained world religions minister from, as you know, having heard me speak before, 9 million years ago. And I am also the daughter of a survivor of Nazi Germany. In fact, my dad and his brother and my Oma would go to the Philippines and be part of the 1,500 Jews trapped in the Philippines. And there's documentaries on this and everything else, but it's a part of German Jewish history that many people don't know anything about. I wasn't raised Jewish. My dad basically chose not to celebrate his faith after all the trauma he had been through. And in fact, married a fabulous Gentile, my mom. And anything I learned about Judaism was from friends and family. Didn't go to synagogue, didn't know a rabbi. You mentioned singing. If you haven't been to a synagogue, when there is singing from a cantor, you have arrived in the most joyous place there possibly could be. So I got to thinking, how am I going to give us a story about Passover as a world-ordained minister? Let's start with the fact that everything we ever hear that is celebrated in a spiritual ritual has an origin and is packaged in myth. So let's have a moment and talk about the scriptures strongly indicate that the Israelites never had any intention of leaving their beloved Egypt. Therefore, to view Pesach, which is the Hebrew word for Passover, you might realize the celebration of a time in which the Israelites joyfully left bondage and became free is kind of a distortion of the truth, which we know is true in all of spiritual practices. The fact is that we know the Israelites were absolutely booted from Egypt by the Pharaoh after he witnessed the firstborn children dying before his eyes. And yet, the beauty of Pesach remains. So let's talk about reframing that. Michael Kagan's holistic, I'm going to butcher it, Donna. I say Haggadah, but it is incorrect. And this book seeks to incorporate a holistic approach to Judaism. Doesn't that rock? Which activates the four worlds of an individual: the world of action, the world of emotion, the world of intellect, and the world of spirit. Think about that. Sounds like something we do all the time in the Wild Soul Sanctuary. Passover and the yearly festival cycle that we witness demonstrates the way in which we can contribute to profound internal reflection and lasting personal change, which I think is what we're all seeking, no matter what we're talking about, what we're celebrating. So let's take a moment and go into prayer and start looking at those 4 questions. If you'll close your eyes and follow my voice, I want you to breathe in the beauty of spring and change of season and the ritual as we walk the earth, as bulbs are blooming, your grass gets green, you're coming off of a spring break of some kind. And I want you to go deeply inside and look at this world from a place of action, from a place of emotion, from a place of intellect, and bringing in whatever spiritual entity moves you so deeply that you know you are connected to something so much greater than we can ever imagine. In this moment, I ask you to look inside and identify something that has enslaved you. Is it your telephone? Is it a story that you continually tell yourself and think it's true? Is it something from your spiritual past that you were told to be truth? And as you grow and learn and examine this world, you find out it is not. In this moment, I ask you to release all things that no longer serve you. Take a big breath out and just say, let go. One more. Breathe in and breathe out hard. Just let go. And then feel the energy of the earth blooming in all sorts of ways, coming up through your feet, through your legs, through your torso, up through your heart, throat, all the way through your 7th chakra, and see it shoot as a rainbow out of your head, encompassing you with the divine light of love and energy and being. And so it is. So knowing that this is all a myth, and I had collected for quite some time what Seder and Pesach was supposed to mean, join me 15, 16 years ago. Nico, you can change the slide. In Israel. So let's go ahead and get a definition of what Passover is. It's a Jewish feast, but it's also a mental attitude that we can use to move forward. When I was doing research to reframe the stories that I had been told, I got to talk to Donna a lot. In fact, thank you, Donna, for picking all the songs today and organizing us accordingly. And what I quickly realized, it's a holy day. We talk about holy all the time. It's a holy day. It's a holy energy. And what is that really? We're talking about spring and how the energy of the earth is blooming and evolving and expanding. Next slide. How many of you heard the title and went, what the hell is she gonna do? Right? So, I told you, some 15 years ago, I was working for an Israeli-owned company. And that meant I was there almost every month. I was there so often, one of my friends assumed I was going to be there for her 50th birthday because they saw me every single solitary month. Little shocked when I said, no, actually, I'm not going to be there this time. Wait, what? It's a 17-hour flight in coach. Those are some long darn weeks, all right? And my job was to bring the revenue-generating team members from all over the world together to Israel and give them the skills that they needed in order to be successful driving our business. Think about it. We're talking Europe, Asia, US, emerging countries, which is what we call them, but Latin America is not an emerging, but people from all over the world. And every single time, the people that joined me there came with their personal beliefs. Of course they did. Wherever they were raised, whether you were Christian, Buddhist, Zen, they all had their stories that they joined me there. Now, what you may not know, I sure didn't, is that there are event crews that will work with you when you're there. So I'm going to take them on adventures during the day, during the night, in the afternoon, all around the training, to Haifa, to the Dead Sea, to Jerusalem, to Golan Heights, you name it. And you get a crew of people that plan these events. Now, one of the things we always did was kind of a scavenger hunt, and you would be on jeeps that were driven by this event crew that were helping me plan and deliver everything. If you weren't spiritual before you got there, the way they drove while you were trying to compete with other teams, you were praying to whatever deity you truly believed in. I mean, and the roads get smaller, and you're hanging out the side, and you're thinking, oh, Mother of God, what prayer can I come up with? Okay? What people also don't know is these individuals are usually a couple years out of serving in the Israeli army, and they all have backpacks. Now, the first time I hung out with all of them, I thought, wow, how cool, they're carrying water for all of us. Yeah, no. Those backpacks are filled with zip ties, guns, tasers, everything they need to keep you safe during these adventures traveling all over Israel. In fact, many of the time, they have submachine guns. Now, while I heard some groans, and I get that, I want to tell you this is simply a way of life. In fact, it is such a normal thing. You guys have figured out by now I do a lot of public speaking, and so I would be speaking at a big customer event, and we needed people to register, and they would go ahead and put a picture up that would rotate when, to encourage you to sign up. It is such a normal thing to have submachine guns all around you that the picture they chose of me, instead of asking for a headshot, was me in the middle of Israel with 2 submachine guns right there in front of me, just crossed across in there. And I did call corporate and say, maybe we want, when we're inviting customers, not to put that picture out there. They went, oh my gosh, yes. So during my time there, I probably trained 4,000 to 5,000 people. So I was there a lot, lots of people. And there was one team that decided I was pretty cool. I love when somebody gets that. And they insisted to always do the events with me. It also meant I could never, ever, ever go on one of those cars driving on a scavenger hunt again, and I could pray back in the corner that everybody came back alive. So this team was kind of uncomfortable with the fact that the Americans and the Europeans and all were laughing at them walking around supporting our events, but also the submachine guns and everything else. In fact, there was buses a lot of the time, and I would sit in the front, kind of being the, Vanna White to the program, and you would see people that had had an aha about a conflict in their spirituality walking towards me, eyes spinning. Well, there was one gentleman that always headed those teams named Michael. In Hebrew, you would pronounce his name as Mikal. And he would genuinely try to survive the request for photos and all the laughing at him and everything else. But I assure you, he was hiding behind me, near me, with me, anytime, any place that we went, because this was simply his life. This wasn't something to laugh about, and he was uncomfortable. We got to be really, really, really good friends, and I would learn his story. He was a single father of, I think at that point, a 3-year-old named Ezra. And he had lost his wife when they had both served, and she had lost her life in a conflict. And so imagine these great adventures and getting over feeling ashamed of carrying around his submachine gun. His backpack is full. Nico, next slide. And here's what we're doing. We're traveling all over the country with these people. And, it was so much fun, and it was so great. And 4,000 people he helped me and his team put through this amazing, magical event all over Israel. And each day when we would have a meal, he'd be right by my side, and I got to know him better and better and better. And because all my friends there thought I was there every month, one day he said, "Hey, will you be back for Passover?" I, also on message, I'm a corporate person and we have to plan for everybody and nobody's going to be traveling during Passover because I must honor my colleagues. I'm not even expecting a conversation. I'm already in my brain refusing to have the conversation. And he said to me, "I talk about you all the time. And I'm wondering if you could find a way to be here for Passover, because my family would like to meet you." So I called my hubby and said, "I've found a way to get him to pay my airfare. I found people who will let me sleep on their couch." This was a really frugal company. They were never going to do anything extra. "And you're in charge of the kids. I'm out." And I flew back to Israel for probably 15 days. Now, what do you think my brain's saying? What should I wear? What should I do? Who should I know? That's the kind of conversation we all have, especially when we're invited to something that we think is probably pretty cool. Here's his response. "Wear comfortable clothes. The weather will change. I will tell you more when you get here." Okay? So I find out that I will be joining his family for Passover at the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem. Okay? Take that in. I get goosebumps just saying it. And sitting there, notice the dress comfortable, weather will change, And I need to tell you that there are tens of thousands of people that make more or less a pilgrimage to celebrate Seder at the Wailing Wall there in Jerusalem. Cantors and rabbis are walking around the outside with the traditional prayers and moments and stories. And you're sitting with groups that have brought in all the elements of a Seder. But I want you to imagine the coolest picnic in your life on steroids. Okay? It is incredible. So In preparing for this, because I remember as Grandma led the Seder sitting there, I came to the realization I had come home. I had taken every bit of my lifetime, and she had, through the course of our day together, demanded of me to be fully present and to release any dogma from religion and celebrate the spirit from within. Grandma has died, but Mikal has sent me her exact words from the Seder that day. I'm going to read it exactly as she said it, because I will never get it right. The Passover Seder was formalized during centuries of exile. However, now it is easy to connect to nature in the land of Israel. The laws of Passover are based upon nature. The ripening of barley and wheat, the trees blossoming, and the plants blooming. The Talmud states that when Rabbi Judah saw trees blossoming during the month of Nisan in springtime, he would recite the following blessing. Blessed be he who hath not left his world lacking in anything, and has created in it goodly creatures and goodly trees for the enjoyment of mankind. She went on to say, therefore, a personal story can be shared using to connect one another in a spiritual manner rather than worrying about all the history and what somebody told you was true. She would then go on to ask some questions. Can you imagine hearing most of the answers in Hebrew? Lots of people whispering in my ear translations. Here are the questions. How should I be freed? Who is the internal Moses that can liberate me? What are the internal voices that enslave me like Pharaoh? I'm going to repeat the questions. How should I be freed? Who is the internal Moses who can liberate me? And I'm going to stop there and tell you, we all have stories about stuff. Did I do that? Everyone sitting with me at this beautiful Seder understood the conversation was about yourself, to go back inside, to identify what you might be doing that is enslaving your heart and your soul. And there, in the old town of Jerusalem, with tens of thousands all around me, Mikel's grandmother brought together every single element of my studies in world religion. Would you like to see a picture of the experience? There I am. Isn't that amazing? Now, I could have put an arrow. I have no idea where I was. But the thing is that I don't have a picture of that day, because one of the things that I do is I carry my damn phone around everywhere, and I record pictures and voices and videos. And when Mikel came and got me at the hotel, he gently leaned over, kissed me on the forehead. I thought, oh, this is going so well. I love this. And reached for my phone and took it away. Because it was about being fully present in that moment. And that may be something that's enslaving you. All right. Last slide, Nico. Oh, there. So, one of the things that enslaves me all the time is the 16 and 17-year-old who are Israeli scouts, and in fact, Talia, the one in the pink hat, was here in our sanctuary this summer when my daughter Kat gave her talk. The Israeli Scouts is a program that starts when they're 12, and they graduate at high school level at 18 or thereabouts. And they are doing survival skills. They are doing spiritual activities. They are military training throughout this entire time. And they reach rank as they get older and older. So Yali, the gentleman in that picture, who turned 17 when he was hanging with us this summer, is the oldest 17-year-old you will ever meet. The greatest amount of wisdom, the most exquisite human being ever. And he is the highest level of the Israeli Scouts. So imagine being 16, turning 17, and being in charge of all the volunteer Israeli Scouts at every Jewish camp in the country. That was his role. Now, you might have noticed by now, I'm head over heels in love with these kids. They are an extension of my life, my story, my family. Those of you that know that trying to call overseas is a pain in the tuchus, WhatsApp is a great app that you can globally communicate with anybody. And so I talk to these kids all the time. And when the conflict occurred, I darn near lost my mind. Because I and their parents, given how well trained they are an absolute candidate to leave their high school experience and enter the Israeli army during this time. I went ahead and started running all my scenarios and all my stories and how horrible this would be and how terrible it would be to have their young lives altered at such an early stage. Guess what? Those are all my thoughts. This picture on the right is from the WhatsApp, the pink hat one. How's that for easier? Because I think your right and left are reversed from mine. Is the kids on WhatsApp sending me videos. Talia's about to blow me a kiss and trying not to cry because that's how Talia and I communicate. And they have just completed running an event for Purim. So that's why they're dressed this way and everything else. Now, here's my reality. The picture of where they did it that looks so barren and stark and blockades and everything else, that isn't my Israel from memory. That isn't the place that I think of the most beautiful country I have ever been experiencing, but it's their reality. And I don't get to put my story onto them. When they sent these pictures, they were running Purim right there, and they had over 200 people in celebration in great joy, great laughter. So the only one that was enslaved on those thoughts was me. And I had to let it go. Because they are living their best senior year life you would ever want there in Israel. They are the highest trained youth in the country. There may be a time that they have to do something that I would be afraid to see them do. But if you were to talk to my wise 90-year-old, 17-year-old, Yali, he says, U.S. Mama, in Hebrew, this is just our lives, and our job right now is to have joy, to celebrate all that is, and to make a difference every single day. How many of us are missing that our youth are so much wiser than we are? So, last slide. This Passover, I invite you to join me in discovering what it is that enslaves you. Whether it's your iPhone, endless hours at the office, negative self-talk, Bridgerton, or Netflix, or something else. I suggest taking this time, this spring, this season of Pesach, to consider how you can set yourself free in order to live a more fulfilling and meaningful life. After all, Passover is not just about our ancestors' experience, but our own personal exodus moving to the light of the divine. Thank you.